I'm a full-time reseller, and throughout the week, we go to thrift stores and yard sales to find things to flip online for a profit. Here's my process after getting it all home. The first thing I do is go through everything and I separate it between what can be washed and what can't be washed. That all depends on the fabric content and if it's new with tags. So if an item is wool, cashmere, or silk, I do not wash it. Cotton and polyester or anything similar of the sort gets washed. I do use light detergent and I don't use very much at all. I also don't wash embroidered sweatshirts like this just because some of the gems and embroidery comes loose. Now that everything's sorted, it's time to photograph. I don't have anything fancy. I just use my white/cream curtain. We do have recessed lighting and that comes in handy whenever I'm photographing. Here are a few of my must-haves whenever I'm photographing. You do want to have a couple different hangers, one that's for pants and one for t-shirts and jackets. You're also going to want to have a lint roller and a measuring tape or yardstick, whichever one you prefer. I like storing my clothing items in these clear poly bags. I do only use two sizes. One is 11 by 14 and the other one is 18 by 24. Another one of my must-haves is a steamer, and you can't beat a handheld steamer, especially when you're photographing clothing. If you pick up sweaters, you're going to want to have a shaver on hand. I do like using this one. It's perfect for getting those little fuzzies off of the sweaters. Now it's time to start photographing the items, and here's a few pointers. My biggest tip is to make sure you're actually in square mode when you're taking your pictures. On an iPhone, you're going to go into your photos, click the down arrow, then you're going to click 4:3, and then just click square mode, and there you go. You want to make sure you take all your photos in square mode. Most platforms prefer that your items be in square mode, but it does also make sure your item isn't cropped out whenever somebody is searching for it on eBay. Make sure you get a front shot, a side shot, or one at an angle, a close-up of any of the embroidery, the back of the item, the brand, and the size tag. I also like to photograph the care tag. Now it's time for measurements, and the measurements are going to vary depending on what item you're photographing. We're doing a sweater, so we're going to do pit to pit, which is armpit to armpit length, and I do also like doing the sleeve. To keep track of what you're photographing, you need to write it down or put it in a spreadsheet. I like handwriting it. It's just what I prefer. It's up to you. One thing I have started doing here recently is actually writing down the date that I'm taking the photographs. This helps keep the papers organized and the dates that I actually photograph the items. And apparently, I believe it's the year 2025, you guys. Make sure you write the item down, the measurements, and the location of where you're going to be storing it. I know I'm not the only one whenever it comes to reselling that doesn't try the item on before packaging it up. This Michael Simon sweater is so adorable, but I do like money more than I do like items, so that's why it's getting listed. Like I said, I do like storing my items in poly bags. This is going to keep the item in the condition that you photographed it in, and most of my items do fit in these 11 by 14 bags. We store most of our items in marked totes, so we have stackable totes like this, and each one will get a number. Then go back to my page and make sure I write down the location that I put the item in. All this information comes in handy because you're going to import it into your listing. So you're going to go into item specifics, scroll to the bottom where it says custom SKU. You're going to click on that, and that's where you're going to put the location of where the item's at, the date that you listed it, and how much you paid for it. This is what it looks like under your listing. It will say custom label with everything that you entered into that line. The good thing about this is the customer cannot see this. Don't forget to enter your measurements whenever you're doing your listing. I like to do this under the description. I do use the AI description, and under that I put my measurements and where the item is located. That's pretty much it. I'll repeat the process until I go through the whole pile that I have set out for the day, and then I'll sit down later on in the evening and put on my favorite Netflix show and list about 5 to 7 items.